It's The List and your boy with Jimmy Van and Sean Ross Sapp.
What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp here. It's Wednesday. It's the 20th edition of The List and your boy.
That's right.
And to commemorate it, Jimmy Van said that he is giving me an investment property in Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
We
That's
talked
exactly
about
what
this
I said.
off the air.
We
Jimmy,
did.
you are the gift that just keeps on giving.
I will give you a Lego house that says Toronto on it, and you can have that. I was telling Sean about how the property values in Toronto have skyrocketed over the last year, and so you will not be getting a house from me in Toronto. And I was also telling you off the air about how you said last week, well, I don't need to be right in the city. Get me something like 30 minutes outside.
Yeah.
Nigel was in here, who lives in a town called Mississauga, which is about a half an hour from Toronto. And I go, hey, Nigel, what's the average property value in Mississauga? He's like, it's 750 to 900,000. And I think Sean shit himself when he said that.
So what you're saying is that considering where I live, because I do live in one of the cheapest states in the country, which is a real benefit to me in this line of work. It helped me get to the point to where I am now. I guess you're saying that I am a relative bargain compared to some of the people you have there, right?
In terms of compensation, no.
Well,
actually, that's not true. That's not true.
In terms of salary, rather.
I pay you in U.S. dollars.
Well, because I mean, what they go through there and what you go through there, I'm sure everything's much, much, much more expensive. Like, a cup of coffee up there is probably much more expensive than it is here in Ewing, Kentucky.
Yeah, probably.
Not that I could get a cup of coffee if I wanted to in Ewing, Kentucky.
Yeah, but just remember, right now the U.S. dollar is about $1.37 Canadian.
Uh-huh.
So if you think about what I pay you and add that 137 on, then you know what I'm really paying you.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
it kind of makes a bit of a difference.
Oh, I used to love it. I worked for What Culture, and the exchange rate, it was nice.
Yeah,
It was
you said they're British, right? You got pounds or something?
Yeah. So they had agreed to like a certain amount, and I was like, oh yeah, that amount. And I was thinking American dollars. Then I get that pay, and it converted, and I was like, oh nice, that's.
I mean,
cool.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That you were able to get. So you thought that you were getting a comparable salary in U.S. dollars?
I didn't even look at what. I think I didn't even attach like a symbol to it when I had negotiated. They just said, "How about?" and then gave me a number.
Right.
Like,
but you thought that was a fair number because you thought it was U.S. dollars.
Yeah, and it wasn't that much different. It wasn't like this was years ago, so it wasn't like a drastic difference or anything. But yeah, I was very happy to get that extra on top of that. I mean,
yeah, man.
That helped me out tax time when I had thought in my mind, what do I need to hold back, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I have a lot of stuff today on the list of Jimmy Van right here.
Oh, boy.
And I'm going to start off by telling you a story, Sean.
You
because
love your stories. Guilty
you know
I'm
a storyteller, man.
Stories.
I should charge you to hear these stories that I always tell you.
Yeah.
I should. This is a story about something that a member of my team said to me last week that pertains to you.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And the reason I'm telling you this story on the air as opposed to just telling you on the side is because I've realized over the last few weeks that most of my team listens to the show.
Yeah.
And some of my work colleagues listen to this show. And so that made me realize, man, I wonder if anybody else has the same opinion. I wonder if anybody else has the same opinion that this girl did. So that made me decide I need to bring it up, and I need to explain myself. So late last week, a really nice young girl in my office by the name of Ventura, who actually is the one that did the voiceover on the Holy Smokes MMA podcast.
Oh.
That's the same girl. She came to me late last week and she said, I listened to this week's podcast, and I'm really bothered by the way Sean talks to you. She said, no, now hear me. Now let me finish. She said, I find that he talks down to you, and I find that he is disrespectful. And she said, the James that I know, because you get that day to day, most people call me James in the company. Yeah. She said, the James that I know would never stand for that, and he would never tolerate that. And so she was a little concerned. And I'm going to be very honest, Sean, and I think you know this. Who I am on this podcast is not entirely reflective of who I am day to day. It's close, but it's not entirely reflective.
It's a little bit of your time to cut loose.
Right, it is. And you understand, day to day, I'm dealing with big accounts. I'm dealing with staff. I'm dealing with clients that can sometimes be, greasy if you let them be greasy. And so in my day to day life, I have to be, I guess for lack of a better term, I have to be hard-nosed, and I have to be aggressive, and I have to be intolerant of any bullshit. And so in my day to day life, that's kind of how I am. And so Ventura was shocked to see that you were, sometimes being a little mouthy, and that I would take it and I would smile and be cool with it. So how I explained it to her, and this is how I want anybody that knows me listening to this to understand. To me, this is entertainment. And to me, this is not a employer and an employee talking. To me, this is two guys.
Breaking kayfabe, Jimmy.
Oh my God, I am the fourth wall. But no, to me, this is two guys shooting the shit about pro wrestling, and I think you'll back me up on this, Sean. When I brought you on, I said talk about whatever you want. Say whatever you want. If you want to swear, swear. You don't be afraid of anything. And that's how I look at it. And so I want to say to people on my team, because I have a really good team. I'm very fortunate. And I got people on my team that have my back. And so I want to say to those people that I appreciate it and I won't forget it, but everything is okay. So I just wanted to say that. Aren't you impressed that I have a team that cares enough about me that they would say...
I hope you got on old Ace Ventura, pet detective, about her being a little too sensitive.
She gets that a lot.
I'm sure I'm the first person to ever do it. I feel for her.
Yeah.
She did a great job on the intro, by the way.
Yeah, she'd never done it before. She had never done that before, and she's a sweet girl. She's been with me for over a year. And I just thought it was really nice of her to have that feeling. And I even told her last week, I told her, I'm going to tell Sean the story on the air.
Well, what you need to explain to her is, listen, Ventura, correct?
That's right.
Ventura, just like the Bible, there is a JV BC and a JV AD. And that separation is when I met Sean Ross Sapp. When I met this charismatic, magical, fantastic writer / producer / podcaster, social media guy. Hey, he does commentary too. He wrestles too. He does all this stuff. He has it all. Look, he's even growing his hair out. Nothing greasy about this. Am I right?
Are you saying you're Jesus Christ? Is that what you're basically suggesting?
Listen, hey. That's
what you just said.
Hey, I didn't say it, but you implied it. So who am I? Who am I?
You said the difference between day-to-day me and podcast me is when I met you, AD to BC.
No. As a marking, as a definitive, like she's saying the James that I know. James that I know.
I got it. Okay. Well, that's what because I think
she's dead and gone.
Wow.
That's pretty much how it is.
I think she was expecting, when she was watching the podcast and she saw you getting a little riled up, I think she was expecting that I was going to blast you on the air. And when I didn't do it, she was like, what the hell is that? I think that's what it was.
Fun fact, Pat Fannin just brought this up in the chat. I am affectionately nicknamed Box Jump Jesus. Absolutely not by myself at all.
What? What does that mean?
I got a high box jump, Jimmy.
Do you?
I can jump really high, yeah.
I've never known this about you.
I can jump on top of a car, Jimmy.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Is that because you're like so light and the lack of body weight allows you to fly?
185 pounds, Jimmy.
Huh. I mean, I'm like 215, so to me, you're still a lightweight.
I mean, I guess.
If
I do any grappling tournaments, I'll probably be about 170, so I'll be a little lighter.
That's all right. I mean, 185 is, what is that? Welterweight, right?
It's middleweight.
Middleweight, right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not bad. That's Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
Right?
I could beat Anderson Silva.
I want to move on and talk about the Sean Ross Sapp emoji.
Oh,
you want to pull it up for a minute?
Oh boy. You are selling that on a t-shirt right now.
That is awesome. So a gentleman on my team by the name of Zorro, who is the guy that created your t-shirt, he created for fun the Sean Ross Sapp emoji. And the guys in that chat are developers on my team. They were all talking amongst themselves and they were sharing your emoji. And then one of them leaked it to me. And I saw it and I was like, we got to show this thing on the air. I'm going to find out how to package and sell that, Sean. I'm going to figure it out.
Like I said, I think you are on a t-shirt.
Yeah, but now I want to sell the emoji. I mean, Kim Kardashian's made a shitload of money. So I'm going to sell the emoji. Are you cool with me selling the Sean Ross Sapp
I
emoji?
don't care. Go ahead.
Going to do it. It's going to be done.
I mean, you pay you pay me on the 1st and 15th, or the 15th and the 31st of every month. So
I
whatever,
do.
Whatever.
And I paid you on time this week, even though I kind of teased you last week that I wasn't gonna.
You never not pay me on time. You pay me early, if anything.
I'm pretty good about that.
You are.
Yeah. So
You are.
anyway, I love that emoji. Good job, Zorro. I'm gonna see if I can package and sell it. I don't even know how you sell an emoji, but I'm gonna try to figure it out. 'Cause it's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's move on and talk about the broadcasting and cable story.
Okay.
You heard about this one, right?
Yes.
Now, the main part about the story had to do with how they're going to do commercials, but there was something else about the story that stuck out to me, and that's what I want to talk about. So,
Okay.
again, I always like to set this stuff up for people that haven't heard. So, NBC Universal, in an effort to get the ratings up on SmackDown, they are going to try picture-in-picture during commercial breaks, and they've tried it before, and I guess it tested well. So what's going to happen is during a commercial break, there's going to be a small window that shows what's happening live on SmackDown with no audio. And then the bigger window is going to be the commercial with the audio. What I found the most interesting about that story in broadcasting and cable is that they listed the top 10 sponsors year to date on SmackDown. So NBC Universal's, not WWE's, NBC Universal's top 10 sponsors year to date on SmackDown. Do you know what the number one sponsor was?
Bosley
WWE Network.
was the top sponsor.
Yes.
Hilarious.
And I thought that was very telling, and I thought that was very interesting. They had spent year to date $742,418. And what that kind of told me was, because WWE already promotes the network on their show for free, right? Mm-hmm. They don't need to buy, you'd think, they don't need to buy advertising. That told me that they probably felt like they needed to do it out of necessity because NBC Universal probably isn't selling, isn't selling things as easily as they thought they would.
NBC Universal probably isn't too keen on the idea of them using so much of their airtime
Right.
that is committed to NBC Universal to say WWE Network, WWE Network. So they're like, hey, how about you pay us a little bit?
It's possible. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, of all the brands on that show, I thought it was interesting that WWE Network was number one. So
I think that's very, very interesting as well.
yeah, yeah. See, I'm an investigative journalist too, Sean.
Are you?
See
I
that?
don't believe that at all.
See? Let's move on and talk about the dive tweets.
Yeah. Let's.
Now, we got to set this up for people. And isn't it ironic that it all started with a Canadian independent wrestler, Sean? Isn't that kind of apropos?
Who started it?
So there was a kid by the name of Daniel Parker, and he is a Canadian independent wrestler. He's from a place that's about 3 hours north of Toronto. And on May 13th, I'm not going to read the whole tweet that he wrote, but he basically wrote a tweet saying that independent matches now have too many dives and no selling, and he said they're very formulaic, independent matches. And this is coming from an independent wrestler, but that's what he said. He tweeted that out to people. Rip Rogers was one of the guys that he tweeted it to, and Rip Rogers, for those unfamiliar, is a longtime pro wrestler from the 70s and 80s. I think he's a trainer now. And Rip Rogers retweeted it. And of course, Rip Rogers, because he's an old school veteran, agreed with it. And this set off just a shitstorm on the internet. There were independent wrestlers like Will Ospreay and T.J. Perkins who agreed or who disagreed with it. And then there were veterans like Randy Orton that agreed with it, and it became a big thing. And Bubba Ray Dudley posted a picture of himself diving in a Ring of Honor match. Randy Orton then tweeted, LOL, there is a difference between a young, hungry talent diving and an old, out-of-shape vet falling.
He Woody from Toy Story'd him. He said that's not diving, that's like falling with style, is basically what he said.
How do you know that?
Because Toy Story is a cinematic classic. What's wrong with you?
You have those sayings in your head, you could just spit them out whenever you want?
Yeah, it's one of the great lines in movie history. How dare you?
How many Chipmunk sayings do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know any of those.
Are you sure?
No, I mean I've heard some of the songs. I listened to them when I was a kid, but Toy Story is a little bit. It's you could enjoy that as an adult.
Yeah, it's right up there with Pulp Fiction and The Godfather. And Titanic 2. So anyway, Randy responded to that. Then Bubba responded to Randy saying, "My tweet had zero to do with you. Looks like you were wrong again. You're still awesome. And they went back and forth, and then Orton posted a big tweet. And I'm going to read this one real quickly because it's Randy Orton. So I'm going to read it real quick. He said, I really need to issue an apology. Sorry to the indie marks, indie guys, and old-timers who do dives and took offense. Just having a good time over a few drinks in Denmark closing the SmackDown Live tour, while beating Raw and making over $5 million in the last 11 shows. Now, I know to some that doesn't equate to a standing room only crowd of 150 people paying $8 at an armory somewhere. But in the big boy world, that's called putting asses in seats. So enjoy your flips, dives, and 20 super kicks per match. To each their own. I will go dive back into my 13th title reign and get ready to flip when my bank statement comes this month. ... Headlock. You covered this with Alex on the Post Raw show on Monday. What are your thoughts on this whole thing? And then I'm going to give you my opinion.
Randy Orton has never drawn on the independent circuit. He's never had to work an independent match, really. He was never going to have to because of who his dad was. Now, he's fantastic at what he does. Is he my cup of tea? No. I mentioned this on a clip that you all can actually see on Fightful.com, myself and Alex talking about it. You're complaining about dives, but you're trying to tell me that it's not unrealistic that a top-level wrestler can't get out of a headlock or a chin lock. If I were to see that from a guy who was, I don't know, week 3 or 4 in grappling class, I'd be like, maybe you need to do something else. That's week 3 or 4. I'd be like, maybe you need to do something else if you're stuck in a chin lock or anything, especially no chokes allowed with no hooks in. Because that's, just give it up. You're not going to get it. Randy Orton doesn't necessarily know what these guys... I mean, he's never had to approach wrestling in this manner because he's always been a WWE guy. And even before he was a WWE guy, he was going to be on his way to being a WWE guy because who his father was. Could he draw on the independent circuit? If he left now, yeah, of course he could. Had he never been in the WWE? Who knows? Who knows? And a lot of these guys haven't been in WWE. And a lot of these guys are learning still. A lot of these guys are experiencing wrestling trial and error. They're figuring out what works, what doesn't. I don't know. I do think that he should absolutely have one of the Bollywood boys, the Singh brothers, dive, and then he should catch them in a headlock mid-dive.
that'd be cool.
Got to do that.
So my opinion is I don't look at this as being a Randy Orton subject so much. I mean, I realize he's the one that created this stir because of his tweets and everything, but to me, the topic is really about independent wrestling and the one guy thinking it's all about dives now and no selling and stuff. And Orton, of course, I mean, Orton, like you said, he's a lifer in WWE. He makes a shitload of money. And he's also always known to be a bit of a dick, and he was probably a few, pops in Denmark when he wrote that. My opinion, and not everybody's going to like or agree with this. I know we have a lot of guys that like indie wrestling that listen to the show. They're not going to like it, but this is just my opinion. I've not been a big fan of indie wrestling for a long time, personally, because in my opinion, a lot of independent wrestlers, they don't have the greatest ring psychology. A lot of them don't sell very well. A lot of them don't know how to tell a story in a match. A lot of them are doing big moves 2 minutes in, whether it be a dive or whatever. The Young Bucks are like internet darlings now, and I'm not big fans of the Young Bucks because they do 20 super kicks a match, and to me, it kills the validity of the move, my opinion.
Yeah.
Years ago, you guys know who Eric Young is.
Yeah.
Years ago when I was promoting independent wrestling, Eric Young did a match. And I don't remember the opponent. I think it might have been a guy by the name of Danger Boy Derek Wilde, who also did stuff for TNA. And they did a pile driver off the top rope through a table on the floor. And I remember seeing that, thinking to myself...
Was that the finish?
I believe it was the finish.
Okay.
Because it's been so many years. I think it was the finish, but still.
That's what makes me mad. I'll watch Ring of Honor pay-per-views. And I enjoy Ring of Honor traditionally.
Right.
But they'll have a match that's about 10, 11 minutes deep, and you'll see like a second rope pile driver.
Right.
And you'll get a kick out. And I'm like, no. And the crowd even wanted that to be the finish.
Yeah.
So when it keeps going, and this is like third or fourth match, that's tough.
Yeah.
The super kick thing, well, I'm okay with the Young Bucks doing it because their gimmick is that they are the indie stereotype.
I know.
Like they're almost a parody of it. And the way that I kind of justify that is a head kick from Ross Sapp is not a finishing move. A head kick from Mirko Cro Cop is a finishing move. To me, a lot of it is who delivers the move. Like a DDT from Randy Orton has been shown it doesn't finish people. Okay,
Yeah.
but a DDT from Jake Roberts, that finishes people. And that's the way I choose to. And I wish that would be the type of thing. I can't believe that's never been brought up. Like,
Yeah, and you know what I think about? I think about when there was a documentary about NXT where they showed Triple H showing Finn Balor how to work in front of a camera. And this was a guy who had been wrestling for years, Finn Balor, and he'd been on major shows in Japan, but he had never been taught how to work in front of a camera. And he didn't understand angles and where to stand. And these independent wrestlers don't have that kind of experience. I think another issue with it too, and again, I'm not shitting on it. Like for those that like it, I'm not shitting on it. This is just my opinion. I think that wrestling has evolved because the wrestlers now are smaller than they were 20 years ago, right? And I think wrestling has evolved to accommodate smaller guys, and everything evolves. And I think that's just kind of happened. It's all subjective, and you know, you and I in the past have spoken about Dave Meltzer's 5-star rating on the show, and we've kind of joked about it. And remember when he had the Omega thing, the Omega match, he gave him 6 stars.
yeah.
And we laughed about it because it's subjective. Like that's one guy thinking a match is 5 stars. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to think that it was a great match, right?
On my podcast notes, occasionally I'll put an out of 10 rating on there, but that's my thought. That's not like Pat Fannin or Kyler James's thought or Carlos Toro or Alex or Anna.
And it goes the other way. If I think that there's a talent in WWE that I think is really good, and if somebody else thinks he's shit, well, that doesn't mean I'm right and he's wrong. That's just my opinion, and that's his opinion. And so this is my opinion when it comes to independent wrestling. And that's just kind of, I mean, I watched the Young Bucks match with the Hardys, and you're right that they do treat themselves like an internet joke to a degree, and they came out to the Hanson music and stuff like that, and they're both, you know, pretty thin guys, but when the commentator was counting the super kicks, and I think they got to like 9 or 10,
yeah,
I just didn't like it. I just thought you're killing the validity of the move. It makes the move a joke.
Well, they did have a funny spot one time where they promised more super kicks than ever on a pay-per-view, and they had a super kick counter in the bottom, and they didn't do one the whole match.
Oh,
but then they came out at the very end of the show and did a run-in and delivered like 40, I think.
Right.
So they lived up to what they said.
Right. Yeah, but again, it's just my opinion, and so that's why, you know, that indie wrestler that made that comment, it's interesting coming from an indie wrestler. I'm wondering if maybe he hasn't had a lot of opportunity, and maybe it was sour grapes coming out a little bit. And then again, Randy Orton, you know, he was probably a little bit buzzing in Denmark when he wrote that. Rip Rogers is a veteran from the 70s. It's obvious, and then Will Ospreay disagreeing with it. I mean, of course. I mean, it's obvious who's going to agree and who's going to disagree.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying my opinion is indie wrestling has these flaws to it that I personally don't enjoy.
Well, a lot of wrestling does. You see Seth Rollins with an injured knee diving everywhere. You see all that type of stuff. It's weird. The reason the closed fist punch was supposed to be illegal is because the moment you watch a UFC fight,
right,
and you come back and watch a pro wrestling match and you see a closed fist punch and there's no blood, there's no mark, nobody gets knocked out, anything like that, you know your suspension of disbelief is out there. I like to make as much sense whenever I have to lay out a match or I have to work a match. I try my best to make sure everything makes sense. And even in the wrestling I watch, if you just add a little something that makes sense, I'll put it in perspective. Just explain stuff. My wife was watching Parks and Rec, the show that has like Chris Pratt of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And in between a 1-month story arc, he had lost 50 pounds because he had gotten in shape for Guardians of the Galaxy. And instead of ignoring that, he said, you know, I stopped drinking beer and I lost 50 pounds in a month. And they addressed it just like in a cute little manner.
Right.
When wrestling addresses things, it makes me love it. Like, I like that. In pro wrestling, Sami Zayn has gotten so good at the dive because he only does it when it makes sense. He does it to absolutely catch somebody off guard. He does it against Braun Strowman, Samoa Joe, Brock, like big guys. Or he does it to more than one person at a time to where he's taken out 2 birds with 1 stone. Anymore, you don't see Sami Zayn doing his flip dive onto James Ellsworth. because it
Yeah,
wouldn't make
and
sense.
I was going to mention the Undertaker, but then I decided I wasn't going to because the Undertaker's a different case. But I thought about the Undertaker when he would do a dive, and there's an old school veteran and a large human being doing a dive. But again, he would do it late in the match, and he would make it mean something. He wouldn't be doing a dive 2 minutes in just to pop the crowd, and to me that's kind of a big difference. But again, it's subjective, and anybody that loves that stuff, good
Yeah.
on you. I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying that I'm not a huge fan of it myself.
Yeah, and you're right. People do have to. Wrestling has adjusted to affect the smaller wrestlers, and
Yeah.
we see a lot. There were some people that would say, "Oh, wrestlers don't look like stars anymore." Well, yeah, because we don't want their fucking hearts to explode at 42 years old. Like there's a reason why people don't have traps popping out of their ears anymore. Because
Yeah, but you look at Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens has proven that you don't need to look like that to be great.
yeah, and then
Because
there are still some people who try to argue that
Yeah.
that he's not. My cousin's a very casual wrestling fan. We fired up WWE 2K17. The first two acts that he looked at and he said, "Oh, they look cool," were Kevin Owens and The Ascension.
right.
You never know who might just pop out to somebody else.
Yeah.
You never know. And
It's true.
yeah, steroids are out of, well, to a degree. They are used far less than they used to be.
I mean, Jinder hasn't failed the test yet, so good for him.
Their levels
Yeah.
are very, very, very forgiving. Very forgiving. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think a lot of people are failing. If they're taking a USADA test, a lot of people on that roster are still failing.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
even then, MMA has helped push that further too, because everybody knows that really, if you're over 265 pounds, you're probably not going to be the baddest dude in the world, because outside of Brock Lesnar and Shane Carwin, there have been nobody. There's nobody that's like 300 pounds walking around that is really the baddest dude in the world, because they gas out in 20
Oh,
seconds.
sure, for sure, for sure.
So
yeah.
a lot of things have facilitated that change.
I just found this when I was going through the list. I had printed this out so that if Sean decided that he didn't want to put the graphic
boy.
up, I would have a printout of it. So I printed that out. So that's
Act
pretty
like I
awesome.
don't do my job.
I thought you might not want to do it, so and again, for people that are listening and can't see that, I have a printout of the emoji that I was talking about, the Sean emoji.
I did have one person that messaged me and they said, "Why don't you write as much anymore?" And I was like, "Well,
Oh, really?
Yeah." And I was like, "Well, I mean, there are a lot of things that I write that may not have my name on it. Also,
Right.
things that we post that might not have my name on it, but." I'm setting up shows. I'm working. The last 2 weeks, it's been because of Wirecast.
Yeah,
I'm
but it's better
scheduling-
now,
Yes, yeah, for now.
See?
It's doing okay.
Good.
There are a lot of other things that go into manage. We got to look over every single article that goes up on Fightful, and we're talking sometimes 40, 50 posts a day that go up
Yeah.
on Fightful.com. So there's a lot into it, and I still write plenty.
You do. You're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something that happened today, actually. George Barrios, he's the CFO of WWE, and he spoke at the Needham Emerging Technology Conference in New York. Brandon Howard did a really good job. He was doing live tweeting of it and everything that
fantastic.
George Barrios said. Yeah, Brandon's really good. But I want to talk about one specific thing that George said that kind of stuck out to me. He said, we've pivoted from a live events business to a media business. And I'll tell you why I thought that was interesting. So, obviously, they have become a media business. Rights fees is their number one revenue stream. I think the network is their second revenue stream. And that's all media, that's all content. So that makes sense. Here's where I thought it was interesting that he publicly said that we're no longer a live events business. What about the guys that are on the road 250 days a year to 300 days a year, and they pay their own expenses? They got to pay their own hotels. They got to pay for their own food. They got to pay for their own rental cars. They work if they're hurt or they're sick. They're still expected to appear. If a flight gets canceled, they're expected to find another way to get there. If the weather's bad, they're still expected to get there. A lot of these guys, when the week is done, they don't gross a whole lot of money because of the expenses. Not to mention now, most of them fly coach. Imagine Braun Strowman sitting in a middle seat in coach. And now they have their CFO saying that we're not a live event business. How would you feel if you were a talent on the road, not making a shitload of money, and then the CFO says that?
I'd feel pretty rough. Pretty rough, because I'm not a traveling guy. And you gotta be able to do that in that line of work. You have to.
It's a tough business. And again, we know that the rights fees are their biggest revenue stream, and we know that the network is their second biggest, but I don't think that means that you need to publicly kind of put it out there, because these guys are on the road getting their asses kicked and seeing their families, a few days a month. They don't need to be hearing that stuff. It's like, why are they even doing it? Why are they going on the road 250 days a year in that situation? So I thought that he should be smarter than saying stuff like that publicly, so I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, it's like I've made the comparison to places I've worked before where they're like, oh, well, we can't afford to give you a raise, and then
that wasn't me.
No, it wasn't. But and this has happened at multiple places. Then they'll send me a message, hey, I'm going to my winter house this weekend. I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. And it's very easy for the CFO of the company to say that when he's at home in his own bed every night, right? He doesn't even think about it.
Yeah.
So. Do you want to tackle the nicknames next? Do you want to do that next?
WWE's weekly excessive usage of stupid nicknames. And I had somebody, kind of arguing the point.
Really?
Today. Yeah, they're like, and this person, you know who you are. You only tweet me to say negative stuff.
Okay.
Or to be contrary. I like you, but you're a contrarian.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, they used to do it all the time. The rattlesnake, the game, all that stuff. The rattlesnake and the game roll off the tongue a lot easier than the Eater of Worlds, the Mountain Among Men. And you didn't have Steve Austin out there putting over Triple H's nickname.
Yeah, not only that, but you wouldn't hear Jim Ross say it 8 times in 10 minutes. Like, you just wouldn't.
Yes.
It was just a different time. And so let's go over some of these first, because then I want to address a couple things. I actually made an observation from watching Raw this week I want to talk to you about. But so when Raw started this week, I actually texted you. I was very optimistic that the company was figuring things out, because the opening segment was 17 minutes long. It had Angle was out there, and Roman Reigns and Rollins and the 5 guys that are going to be in the 5-pack challenge. And not one time in 17 minutes did Michael Cole or Corey Graves say the big dog about Roman Reigns. Not once.
Dumbass nickname, by the way.
Which is a stupid nickname, but they didn't say it one time. And I watched that segment thinking, they're figuring shit out.
Well, especially when you got the big hog on SmackDown.
Right, and of course you got to make sure you get that reference in once a week, at least, so good for you. But when that happened, I thought to myself, they're figuring shit out, and they're going to cut back on the nicknames. And unfortunately, things fell off the rails after that. And I've got a few notes. So during Sheamus's match, he wrestled Jeff Hardy. He was called the Celtic Warrior 3 times within the first minute of the match. And I actually did a count. The final count for the match was 5 references of the Celtic Warrior. Michael Cole said it 3 times. Corey Graves said it twice. Then when Sasha Banks was out, her segment lasted 4 minutes, because it was a very quick match. She was in there for 4 minutes. She was called the Boss 3 times in 4 minutes. 2 times from Michael Cole, 1 time from Corey Graves. Then one of them that really killed me, Sean, I don't know if you noticed this. When they put the match graphic up, and they'll be like, later tonight, Seth Rollins against Bray Wyatt, and they put that graphic up?
Yeah.
On 3 different occasions when they put that graphic up, they said the Architect and the Kingslayer back to back. 3 different times. So they didn't just say the Architect, they said the Architect, the Kingslayer. And Cole and Graves both did that. And then the one that really kind of made me just want to go do something else was Alexa Bliss. So when Alexa Bliss was out, and when she was the goddess, and Michael Cole made a point of saying she calls herself the goddess, which I don't recall hearing before, at least not in repetition. And then Corey Graves, bless his heart, Corey Graves said, kneel at the altar of the goddess. And then when Bayley attacked her, or when Bayley came out, he said, how dare Bayley interrupt the goddess? Now, I want to make a couple points. So Alex said something on the Raw Review show this week. He said, well, they're saying it because they're being told to say it. And I don't disagree. I'm sure that Kevin Dunn and Vince McMahon are on the headset being a pain in the ass and saying, don't forget the goddess, don't forget the goddess, don't forget the goddess. The thing is, Booker T is also on those headsets Booker T rarely says those nicknames. Rarely. Maybe once a whole show, if you're lucky. I think that Michael Cole and Corey Graves are two kiss-ass corporate shill types. My opinion. And I think that if Vince says, don't forget the goddess, Corey Graves is like, I got to keep my job. I got to keep my job. I'm going to say it 18 times in 3.5 minutes because that's just what I'm going to do kind of thing. And it's very irritating. But I want to bring up another point that I saw this week, and I want your opinion on it. When Sheamus was introduced by JoJo, she referred to him as the Celtic warrior Sheamus, right?
Yes.
Everybody else on the show, Dean Ambrose, The Miz, Roman Reigns, they were not referred to by their nicknames on their intro. Dean Ambrose was not called the Lunatic Fringe Dean Ambrose by JoJo. And The Miz was not called the A-lister The Miz. And Roman Reigns was not called the Big Dog Roman Reigns. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because every once in a while they want to change their names to sell a T-shirt, but they figure, well, Sheamus is the Celtic warrior, like kind of like Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff? Like, why do you think?
I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason behind it besides, as you mentioned, somebody maybe in JoJo's ear saying, call him the Celtic warrior.
You think so?
Call him this. I need to ask that in particular.
Yeah.
That would be, I hadn't really thought about that. That's something that I'm going to reach out and
for some reason, it just kind of struck me. I just kind of noticed it because everybody now has a nickname, but JoJo doesn't call most of them by it. But Sheamus, of course, she did. And I kind of looked at it like the Mr. Wonderful comparison where Hogan was the immortal, but not everybody called him that. I think later on Finkel did, but early on, not everybody did. But Mr. Wonderful was always Mr. Wonderful. But
Adam Ball asks, isn't Lunatic Fringe a song by Golden Earring? That might be copyright, trademark issues. I don't know who that is. I know where he got the name. It's because our local rock station in Cincinnati is known as the Lunatic Fringe, WEBN, and that's where Dean Ambrose is from. Yeah.
So it might have been his idea. Do you think?
Maybe, but see, I'm sure WWE are aware of that radio station because they give them interviews a lot whenever they're in town. So it's something that I'm sure they're familiar with.
Right. Okay. Well, I want to read a question from a reader that goes back to this whole nickname thing.
Okay.
So I figured this is a good time to tie it in. And this is very long, but I'm going to try to paraphrase it because I don't want to read the whole thing. His name is Juizy, and it's Juizy. And he said, I really like Jimmy's new segment on nicknames, and I'd like to hear both of your takes on something. And what he basically says is Shinsuke Nakamura being called the King of Strong Style. He says, so they're promoting that this guy is the best at a more realistic form of pretend/scripted fighting. Whenever I hear it pulls me right out of the moment. And he wants to know what we think about it. So my take on it, and again, the Strong Style thing, I believe Inoki came up with that. Mm-hmm. And it was in the 70s, I think. And what Strong Style refers to, it's a more stiff form of pro wrestling. So stiffer kick, stiffer punches, submission moves, more like an MMA style. The way I look at it is, you know how they always talk about how different geographies in wrestling have different styles. So like in Mexico, you have Lucha Libre, right?
You don't take a lot of bumps in Lucha Libre.
And it's
a lot of rolls and stuff like that.
And high flying and stuff like that, like Rey Mysterio. I look at Strong Style as being essentially the Japanese style of wrestling. Because even in the 80s, you remember guys like Tatsumi Fujinami, they would have Ric Flair's chest beat red from all the chops by the end of the match. And it's always been known it's a stiffer style, it's a snugger style. And to me, when I hear Strong Style, I just think of it as the Japanese style of wrestling. And that's why I'm able to, I guess, suspend disbelief when they use that nickname. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I hate the term. I kind of hate the term, but in the WWE realm, and I don't know that they called him that on the main roster because they've kind of switched to the artist type of thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
I definitely see what he means because it implies that other styles maybe aren't as tough. I don't know, but I could definitely agree with that. I mean, there are ways you can get around that and still call him the king of whatever style and still make that happen.
I figure Vince McMahon probably thinks Strong Style sounds better than Japanese style.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, so. But I don't know that Vince McMahon had any idea what Shinsuke Nakamura was being called in NXT.
No, probably not.
Doesn't really watch it.
Yeah, Hunter might have mentioned it to him, but yeah, you're right.
Hey, you want to talk about working stiff, Jimmy?
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy named Bill Goldberg.
What a great segue, man!
He worked pretty stiff.
Amazing.
A lot of people. Way to be smooth about it. Jesus Christ.
Awesome.
We were able to talk to somebody about Bill Goldberg, somebody who was familiar with the situation, somebody who worked with Bill Goldberg. His name's J.J. Dillon. It's time for story time.
The problem was that he never, ever had a chance to really learn how to perform. And it's like a baseball player that in spring training can go in the batting cage, but until the season starts and they're out there in front of live pitching in a competitive environment, that's when the cream rises to the top. And Bill Goldberg never had that chance because there was no place for him to go learn. WCW had no live event schedule that did any kind of business. They never scratched the surface pay-per-view wise. And if you remember back, that's when Stone Cold was so hot. And if you took a picture of Stone Cold and put Bill Goldberg's picture right next to it, if you look at him, it was like looking in a mirror. Both of them had the shaved head, had the goatee, had a similar body with the big bulging traps. And so I think, and Bill had that it factor. But then when Bill got out there, Kevin Sullivan who's one of the brilliant minds in the history of our business that never gets credit for how really brilliant he is. They just look at him as the guy that was an incarnation of the devil playing on the sand with the bones and everything with eyes rolled back in his head. And he was a Catholic altar boy from Boston, but he was a brilliant, brilliant mind in our business. And when Goldberg finally, by necessity, was put on television, I remember the first week was, well, what are we going to do? If he's out there very long at all, he's going to expose himself as to really how little he knows. Well, let's have a big fancy entrance, with the sparklers and everything. And he'd come out and exhale and look like he was blowing smoke or blowing fire. And then he would get to the ring, kind of like the same thing with the Ultimate Warrior with the streamers and running to the ring and shaking the ropes. And then when the bell rang, he didn't do a whole lot.
All sizzle, no steak.
Yes. Okay. Very good. You're very observant. And but with Goldberg, it was like, well, let's just have him beer somebody and jackknife him in 1, 2, 3. And wow, the people just exploded. And then, as I talked before about in this business, yes, you can do something, but you have to think about the second week, third week. And I remember the second week all, the problem didn't go away. We still got what are we going to do? Well, it worked last week. Hey, that makes it different than everybody. Let's do it again. And then all of a sudden it took on a life of its own where the fans started talking about the record of consecutive quick victories. And then that became the story. That Goldberg goes in there and wipes people out, and this is consecutive win number, whatever it was, and they were tracking it. And as I said, Kevin Nash was a brilliant, brilliant guy. And he got he got with Bischoff, and he said, even Superman, with all his powers, and he could fly and he could do everything, there was one thing that he was vulnerable to, and what was that? It was kryptonite. Bill Goldberg has got to have a kryptonite. The people are going to reach some point where they're going to say, hey, well, there's nobody can beat him, and they're going to lose interest. And Kevin sold the idea that we've got to show a human side to him. He has to be vulnerable. Somebody has to beat him. And, and it's kind of like just stood there like as big as he was and as awesome as Kev was that, I guess maybe I put my card out on the table because, I'm big enough that people were going to not be shocked if it happened. And then that's going to make Bill vulnerable. And now that people can relate to him more because there is a human side to him.
How do you think that Bill thought about Kevin Nash ending that streak?
No, I never talked to Bill. And I think Bill knew that from day one, he didn't have the background to be able to say, hey, I feel strongly about this or that, or that's the right thing or not the right thing, because he had been put in that position every step of the way. And to all of a sudden say, wow, I'm this huge star and I think this is a mistake. To Bill's credit, he never did that. And he said, I guess maybe these people know better than I do, and I'll go with the flow.
I love story time with JJ.
Absolutely, JJ's awesome.
I don't love Wirecast, though, because its default settings caused me to miss the intro graphic.
I was wondering what happened to that.
Yeah, that's what it was. Wirecast, a setting reset, and there was a thing that lets you resume it from the last time you played it, and when I loaded it in, I tested the clip, and
okay. Did we get the entire thing?
Oh, of course we got the entire thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
That's
the
good.
image didn't. So what? If you all noticed a little audio running into each other for like a second there, that's what that was. But yeah, it's interesting to see that like the stiff worker of 20 years ago was I don't know 280 pounds.
Yeah.
And the guy they're pushing as like the stiff worker today is like 215, 220.
Yeah.
Things have
Absolutely.
changed. Things have absolutely changed.
They
Do you have
have.
anything
They
else
have.
on the list?
Oh, I have so much on the list. I want to tackle another question from a reader. This is Gigi at Guzomatic. And for some reason, when I saw this question, I don't know why, but a name popped into my head immediately for whatever reason.
Uh-huh.
So his question is there an actor you would like to see involved in the proposed Vince McMahon biopic? And for whatever reason, Dennis Quaid came into my head just immediately. And I think Dennis Quaid would make an awesome Vince McMahon because they're about the same height. They kind of look alike. They're not that different in age. And I think Dennis Quaid could pull it off. So he would be my pick to play Vince McMahon.
You know who my pick to play Vince McMahon would be?
Who's that?
John Cena.
What?
John Cena. Because that's exactly how Vince McMahon fancies himself.
Right. He thinks he is. He looks like
He
that.
thinks he is, and
Right.
you would have to go a comedic route with the script that was circulating. And could you imagine John Cena portraying a comedic Vince McMahon that he has worked for the last 15 years?
Yeah, he would definitely. I mean, guys that have worked for Vince for a long time, they're always able to kind of imitate Vince, and they're always able to, because Vince there's certain things that he always does or says, right? Always calls guys pal, and he doesn't like to sneeze and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Cena's been around him and seen it all, so
yes,
I guess he'd be able to pull that off.
I said that they should just CGI the whole thing and have Bruce Pritchard play every character, because one of the attractive things about his podcast is he does very good impersonations of everybody.
Right.
So just have him voice everything. You'll be all right. Bring Jason Sensation in.
Something tells me that Vince would not approve of that. Call it a hunch.
Somebody asks, yeah, probably not. Somebody says, who would play John Cena then?
Oh, he'd play himself.
He would then play himself. Yeah,
Absolutely.
you do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he's more or less looked the same for the last 10 years.
Yes, he has.
So Cena could pull that off, no problem.
He could.
I want to address one more question from Juizy that I just missed.
Jaweezy.
From Juizy, and he makes a good point, and I have my theory as to why this is.
Yeah.
So he says, I have an issue with Sami Zayn coming down to the ring with an underdog from the underground shirt on. He said, I can appreciate sports teams or individual athletes embracing the underdog label and using it as motivation, but who the hell would refer to themselves as an underdog on a T-shirt? Obviously, my answer is he wants to have merch. He wants merch money, and that's what the company came up with, and he wants that cut, so he's going to do what he has to do.
I see MMA fighters all the time saying, I love being the underdog. I am the underdog. Now, they don't put it on a shirt because that kind of nickname is, pardon my language, fucking dorky.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So that's why they don't do it. But in wrestling, here's the thing, man. Wrestling has some of the worst merch. Some of the absolute dirt worst merch.
Yep.
So, yeah. Oh,
it's the kind of stuff. It's the kind of stuff you won't wear out in public most of the time.
Could you imagine Alexa Bliss out wearing her shirt? Like, if she went out to get a drink or something, she wouldn't wear her shirt.
Yeah, probably not.
She wouldn't wear a shirt.
And Sami Zayn wouldn't wear his either, probably.
To me, simple is better. Hey, I like these Onnit shirts. They're very simple shirts.
Yeah.
The shirts that I've had made are very, very simple type stuff. they always got to do the most. They got to do all this extra shit with their shirts, and then they started to sew the WWE Authentic tags on there, and I'm like, great way to never sell a shirt, guys.
I mean, obviously, if Sami Zayn gets stroke, if he's able to climb the ladder to the point that he has clout, he'll be able to have creative say into what goes on a T-shirt. Yes. At this point, he doesn't have that kind of clout, and so he's just lucky that he has one at all. Because I remember, wasn't it a year ago that Zack Ryder was public saying, Chris Jericho's got 8 pieces of merchandise and I have nothing? I think it was Chris Jericho. So I think Sami Zayn is just like ecstatic that he actually has a T-shirt, and he wants that merch money, so he just deals with whatever it says.
Yeah, that's really about the extent of it, because, man, they really need somebody to come in there and be like, your merch all kind of sucks. Gallows and Anderson have a cool shirt that's based on the Bullet Club logo, and for them, I don't find that a ripoff because it's them.
What about the James Ellsworth shirt? It's pretty good.
I don't even know what his shirt is.
Had his face on it. Remember?
Well, yeah, for him that works.
Yeah.
For him that works.
That was the inspiration for the. Let me move my head for a second. That was the inspiration for the official Fightful.com Sean Ross Sapp, your boy T-shirt being modeled by Jimmy Ellsworth. That you can get ProWrestlingTees.com/Fightful. That's where we got the inspiration for that shirt, was from James Ellsworth's shirt.
But I mean, the Austin 316, simple shirt, sold 1 billion of them. The NWO shirt, pretty simple, sold 1 billion of them. Degeneration X, pretty simple, sold 1 billion of them.
Hulkamania as well, crushed it.
Yeah. Like, it's so weird to me when you see all these things that are like soft and it's got a finger pointing at you. That's even a little too much for me. Certified Jersey G with a bunch of stuff in it, and
you know what?
Bosses make bank.
I do want to say one thing about the Certified G shirt, because I had this actually. I have a little thing on my list this week called WWE Good Stuff. I wanted to come up with some stuff.
Who prints those off for you?
I do it myself, man. I'm a multitasker.
What?
Absolutely. I do it myself in my office. I write it and I print it. How do you like that? That's but impressive. I actually had this as a, because I find we're negative a lot about the product, and I wanted to find stuff to talk about in a positive light.
Sure.
And for me, one of those things was actually the new Certified G shirt. And the reason I was going to bring it up is because I think it's brilliant that they now put on every city, just like the Suplex City shirt, because that means you're going to, I think you have a higher likelihood of selling those in every town you're in, because it's got the low. I can't believe more guys don't do that. And when I saw,
it's very expensive.
Maybe, but if you think about, because not only do they have the live crowd, but they have the online component too. So I think it makes sense. And I saw the Enzo shirt, and I thought he's going to sell a shitload of those T-shirts.
There are some shirts that they have that I like. There's the Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt they have out now that. It's the old school style that like Roots of Fight does. That one's very, very, very good. Right. They have the Kurt Angle one that's blue with the red stars. I think that one looks really good. I thought American Alpha shirt wasn't too bad as well. Simpler is better. The RKO shirt, it was just a takeoff of the NWO shirt, and it was pretty cool. There are things that sometimes they hit, but a lot of times it's missed. Some of their vintage shirts where they'll put Razor Ramon, an animated old logo on, that's cool stuff.
Yeah. The old Macho Man one with the like light purple, and it was his sunglasses on the front. I mean, that's pretty classic.
Oh, I mean, everybody has one of those. The Ty Dillinger shirt that is the old school style and has his 10 fingers up there. That's a good shirt too. There's some stuff that isn't too bad.
Let's move on. I wanna ask you about an interview that Kofi Kingston did on your favorite website called Sportskeeda. Unless they
let me just specify.
Yeah.
My decree to our freelancers is, if you want to cover an interview Sportskeeda did, that's absolutely fine. But if you see something that says exclusive from Sportskeeda, that's a no-go. You're not doing that. An interview is factual. It actually happened. It's not speculation, something that's going to get proven. Because last week, what happened was Alex said, is so-and-so site a website that I can source as information? And I said, yes, absolutely. And then about an hour and a half later, I found out that a person that I had originally decreed, no, not a source, can't go with them, was working for that site. So I had to be like, no, sorry, that's not a go, and it's a good thing because the information cited was incorrect. And it was
Okay.
that Roman Reigns was going to feud with The Miz, which he ain't doing right now.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. So Kofi Kingston did an interview with Sportskeeda, and he basically said, I'm going to read this quote. He said, I think to have a trio Freebird, a singles title, that would be cool. It's something we've talked about many times, and we're ready to shake things up. What do you think about the idea of doing Freebird rules with 3 guys on a singles title?
If it was the hardcore title, I'd be all for it.
Right.
That's about it.
I'm in agreement on that too, and I mean I might be willing to consider it on like the Intercontinental or U.S. title maybe because they're not considered. Although U.S. title is getting momentum again, but otherwise they're not what they used to be. But if they ever consider doing that with the world title, that's too much.
Yeah,
well,
I
that's just
think-
too much.
I think the Intercontinental title is back in a good place. It's the main title on Raw right now.
Yeah, and a necessity.
And The
It is.
Miz really did. Like, when he says he made that title mean something again, he really did. And he did it like... He really didn't even necessarily do it in the ring. Now, the matches he had with Dolph Ziggler, those were very good. But the U.S. title, it's kind of been there for a little while. Like I mentioned, with the exception of a little reign from Kalisto, you've had John Cena, you've had Kevin Owens, you've had Chris Jericho, Roman Reigns, Rusev was, he meant a little bit of something at some point. Who else? Alberto Del Rio was, he won the title from John Cena. And even going back 2 years ago, Seth Rollins and John Cena feuding over that title. And I think the catalyst to that was Rusev. Rusev made that title mean something. And even a little bit before him, you had long reigns from Sheamus and Dean Ambrose, but Dean Ambrose never defended it. But you look back to like 2013, there are a lot of big names that have held that title. So yeah, I don't know if I'd want them doing it with that one, but
And good on
title, I'd be
Rusev.
fine.
Good on Rusev that he claimed he missed SmackDown because he was going to an NHL playoff game. Good for him. Because if I was going to miss SmackDown for that reason, I damn sure would brag about it on social media too. So good for you. The Nashville Predators are doing well. I'm not a fan of the team, but they're doing well. So good for him. Let's talk about, I want to talk about hypocrisy for a second.
Hip-hop hypocrisy?
Hypocrisy, yes. I want to talk about hypocrisy because how many times have you seen, whether it be on a WWE DVD, and you know that they like to embellish the truth a little bit, right?
Yes.
But how many times have you seen on either a WWE DVD or on a network special where they shit on Eric Bischoff because he put Goldberg versus Hogan on Nitro as opposed to saving it for a pay-per-view? How many times have
All the time.
All the time, and they have all these guys saying what an idiot Goldberg was. When you flip that, how many times have we seen first time ever matches occur on Raw with no build whatsoever? And
they not only do they not make it a week ahead of time, they make it like an hour ahead of time.
Right, an hour ahead of time. They do it all the time, and now I will say, I suppose, in Vince McMahon's defense, Goldberg Hogan is another level. And you can't compare Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt or Finn Balor and Roman Reigns to Goldberg Hulk Hogan. But at the same time, it's still a match that if it's a first-time match, you can make it mean something. And so Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt, I hadn't even realized they had never wrestled one-on-one. They had the match on Raw with no build-up, really. And then it made me think about Batista when he did an interview with Jericho. It might have been on the last podcast or it might have been on one previously. And he talked about when they split up the Evolution. Do you remember that? And Batista was the babyface, and he did the thumbs down, and the crowd was really into it. Batista said that after they did that turn, Vince wanted to book the match on Raw the next week. If you can fucking believe that, right? And it took Triple H to say, we got to save this for Mania. Like, this has got to be a Mania match. Why is it that Vince is so impatient? Do you think it's because all he cares about is getting through this week? We just got to get through this week, and then we'll worry about next week later. Do you think that's what it is?
Yeah, I do, and I think that's a bummer because I don't know how many times I've said you need first-time matches. Not only first-time matches, first-time physical encounters on pay-per-view. No, not necessarily pay-per-view, but the network, whatever the hell it is. Mm-hmm. Because it loses the special if you just do it over. You know why? And I'm not comparing this to Goldberg, Hogan, but one of the reasons I like the Usos and Breezango is because they're facing this week, and they've not touched each other during this feud. You haven't seen Fandango versus Jimmy Uso or Tyler Breeze versus Jey Uso, but you have seen the Usos coming out and say, in 12 days, I'm going to kick the living shit out of you.
I'm very happy that you said I don't want to compare this to Goldberg and Hulk Hogan, because we're talking about Breezango.
Yes, but I mean,
like, seriously,
it's a thing that I'm looking forward to on the show.
Right.
I'm
right.
looking,
and they're
I'm
getting
like,
over. Absolutely, they're getting over.
I'm wondering, are the Usos going to rip Breezango's arms off and beat them over the heads with it? Because I don't know. I've not seen any physical interaction to know who's going to hang with who.
Yeah.
The Goldberg thing, it's and people do people forget what the plan was for that? I mean, it was July 6, 98 when Goldberg won that title in the Georgia Dome with how many thousands of people?
Yeah.
Okay, well, they were in the Cox Arena in San Diego for Bash at the Beach that following Sunday with 10,000.
Yeah, but it's not all about the live attendance, though,
Well,
right?
Here's the thing. Did Hulk Hogan need the championship to face Diamond Dallas Page and Karl Malone?
Yeah.
He didn't. He didn't need it. And that was
No.
a marquee match. The Malone Rodman thing, that is arguably one of the best athlete tie-ins to pro wrestling of all time. Next up, you have Road Wild. You weren't selling tickets there either. You weren't
No,
sell
but at the
tickets
same
there,
time, I mean, obviously the reason they booked it on Nitro last minute was because they wanted to pop a rating. That's why they did it. WWE by then was overtaking them, and they wanted to pop a rating. They didn't have to wait 1 month. They could have waited 3-4 months to do it on pay-per-view. I mean, they waited a year for Sting.
Yeah, but that was the right time to book that match.
Well, then
I think a lot of times WWE waits a little too long.
I think that if they wanted that to be the right time, they should have started promoting it 2 months out, as opposed to. I think they advertised it on Nitro the Thursday before.
I think that the world starts to see it coming. They know what's up. A good example is Too Cool. They were like one of the hottest acts in wrestling. And then WWE waited like 5 months after they were really, really hot to put the titles on them. I'm like, okay. There were so many wrestlers that are now, or not necessarily now in mid-card obscurity because they all left, but they got so hot. Like, there was a time when I was like, man, Cody Rhodes, I could see him as holding the big gold belt. Wade Barrett, him too. Ryback, he looked like
I never
was
saw
there.
it. Yeah.
When they had two champions, there was absolutely no reason none of those guys could have. But they waited a little too long, and then they got relegated to that spot. Goldberg was never in danger of that.
No.
But and he was still very, very hot through the summer, but they were like, Georgia Dome, let's do it. It was his hometown. I think the moment kind of outweighed everything else. And if they would have done that on pay-per-view, would it have made a difference at the where the company was going in the end?
No, but the point of the company was to make money.
Yeah.
And they were too worried about. I mean, you can't honestly think that booking that match with no notice was a smart idea. It was a horrible idea.
It was a few days' notice. Maybe I'll talk to JJ about that next time.
Yeah, you should, because
he made the announcement.
That's right. And if I remember right, Goldberg didn't even know. Goldberg wasn't at the Thunder taping.
He didn't know.
Didn't even know. And anybody that did not watch Thunder would tune into Nitro on Monday, because the internet back then was not what it is today. They would tune in on Monday and go, "What the hell? We're getting this tonight?" You know?
Yes.
That was a horrible idea. There's no way to pen it as a good idea. But again, the point I'm making is that it's funny that they would shit on Eric Bischoff so often.
And do it all the time.
They do it all the time. And when they announced Rollins and Bray for Raw, and again, I realize it's not at the same level, but when they announced that, and they made a point, Kurt Angle made a point of saying, first time ever. And I thought to myself, and you're just giving it away for nothing? No build-up, no nothing? It's unfortunate. They're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Lucha Underground did a good segment in their, I think, first or second season where it was either Alberto Del Rio or Tejano came into Dario Cueto's office, said, "I want a match against him tonight," and he said, "No, I'm not doing that. I got to promote that match."
That's awesome.
Like that's all it takes.
That's how it should be. It's like, Owens for a while when he was first in WWE, and he would walk out on matches because he would say, "I'm a prize fighter."
Yeah.
And he'd say, "So I'm not doing this tonight because I'm a prize fighter." That should be the mentality, right?
Well, the mentality should be that they get paid more for winning matches.
Absolutely.
That should be the thing. But Vince McMahon wants his guys to be above needing to worry about money. But then if they don't worry about money, they're just... Yeah.
Do you remember that Monsoon used to do that? Monsoon used to say, if there was a disqualification, he would say, well, he's going to lose out on the winner's money.
Yeah.
No, he used to say that all the time.
It's like I told you one time. I do assessments of our contracted guys. I got to make sure that myself, Alex Palowski, David Tees are doing enough to justify us having them signed to contracts as opposed to being freelancers.
Right.
Now, if they don't have any incentive, which they don't necessarily, they don't get a win bonus for writing an article. They make a certain amount. Carlos Toro, he's out there, and John Morehouse, they're chomping up assignments because every time they succeed, every time they win with an assignment, they get money for it. Kevin Owens, really, if he wins, he should be getting paid for that. But WWE wants their guys to be like their guys shouldn't worry about money. Like this is their living. They shouldn't worry about money.
So are you telling me that you have no incentive to work because I'm paying you a guaranteed contract?
That's exactly what it is. That's
because you know what's funny? That whole
3-minute
thing that you just said, the only thing I got out of all of that was, oh, Sean doesn't have incentive to work because I got him on a guaranteed contract.
I'm here, aren't I? Right now, Wirecast is
But you told me you love this. You said you enjoy doing
right?
this.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's working.
Let's talk about Titus O'Neil.
Let's do it.
Now, a while back, I don't know if you remember this, I wrote an article on the site about how I thought Titus was an underrated performer. I did. I don't know if you remember this. It was a few months ago.
I remember it.
And I know you can laugh about it. The reason I said I thought he was an underrated performer was because, number one, he's got a good look. Number two, he's got a legitimate background in football. And number three, he's a likable guy to use for public relations purposes. And the company's always using him for PR stuff. Always. Even though he's been lower on the totem pole, you always see his face in any kind of PR stuff that they do. So I always felt that he was an underrated guy, even though he was pushed like a slug on television. Now he is portraying a sports agent / manager for Apollo Crews. And I know that there's a little bit of controversy because some guys think he's too big. And I think Alex said it on the Post Raw show. JBL said it apparently on Bring It to the Table, that Titus O'Neil's too big. I completely disagree with that. I think that just because he's a big guy does not mean that he's not fit for that role. I think he's great in that role because he's a good talker. He looks the part with the suits. He's believable as a guy that's kind of, because they make it look like he's kind of conning Apollo Crews and that Apollo's going to turn heel, but then down the road he's probably going to turn on Titus when he figures things out.
Yeah.
And when you think about guys like DDP, who was always bigger than the guys that he had on his roster, Johnny Valiant was big. He was a manager for years. Even Bobby the Brain Heenan was a former wrestler and was not tiny.
Harley Race is a big dude, but they put him with bigger dudes.
Right, like Vader. Yeah.
He had the half ton of Hell and Fury or whatever it was called.
I think Titus as a sports agent / manager is a great spot for him, and I really like it. And I also really like the slow turn they're doing with Apollo, where Apollo did I call it the Ghetto Blaster from Bad News Browns days. But he hit that move on Enzo because Enzo was going to take a selfie. So you can see that they're doing a slow heel turn with Apollo, which is exactly what he needs. And Titus, I love him in that spot. I just think he's funny, and I like him in it. It's good.
I love him in that role too. I think that role would have been a good role for a lot of people, and he's the one that got it, so good for him.
Absolutely.
Because they never got it off the ground with Abraham Washington. He said some stupid stuff.
Right.
I was actually at that show, I think, where he said, maybe I was, or maybe it was the week before, where he somebody said the eccentric thousandaire Titus O'Neil. But yeah, I think it's the best use of him because he's not good in the ring. I know that when he was training, he hurt a lot of people, but
he does little things. Sorry to cut you off. He does little things that are funny, and I don't know if you noticed when he came to the ring with Apollo, and he rubbed Apollo's head. Did you see that? When they were coming down the ramp, and Apollo was kind of a little bit slow, lagging behind.
Yeah.
And Titus turned and he rubbed his head, and I thought that was hilarious. I think he's great in that role, and I hope they stick with it. I hope they don't just bury him and job him out and he's gone. Because I like it.
I think they need to shatter a lot of the old rules of professional wrestling where you can't manage a guy smaller than you. Who cares? And then whenever Titus kicks somebody in the ribs at ringside, you really believe that it should hurt, as opposed to, no offense to Sensational Sherry, but 130-pound Sensational Sherry doing it.
Hey, I spent a weekend with Sherry, not in that sense, but we spent a weekend at an independent show. She was a tough lady.
I know, but I'm just saying, in comparison to believing that Lana doing it and Titus O'Neil doing it, the difference.
I agree. But I think it's a really, really good role. I also want to talk about Goldust heel turn. I personally love it. And I was watching with my wife last night, and my wife is a casual fan. She doesn't follow wrestling too much. She'll watch it just because I'm watching it. She loved it when he turned heel because she remembers him from 20 years ago, and I love it. Obviously, he's coming towards the end of his run. I think why not give him one more heel run? Let him bring back the ropes. Let him bring back the wigs. Let him do the. Remember, he used to do movie quotes and stuff like that. Why not give that one more shot? They're lacking of talent on the Raw side. You could at least have him upper mid card as a heel. I like it. I think it's a good idea.
I do too, and I think you can do that. I think that's a very easy thing to do. The wig, the robe, bring it back, have him cut a promo and say, I've been losing, but it wasn't my fault. I've held myself back. The WWE has neutered me, and they're not going to do it anymore. It's a very, very easy.
And quite honestly, I mean, I really hope they don't go the obvious route and have him lose to R-Truth in a singles match. If it were me, I would do something as shocking as have him beat Ambrose for the Intercontinental title.
That's his title.
And something like that would reestablish him. And Dustin Rhodes is good, man. Like he's a good talker and he's got personality and he's entertaining and I like it and I think why not give him one more run.
Give him a shot. If it works out, I mean, Jinder Mahal, they got him doing stuff on SmackDown, so why not Goldust?
Right?
Why not Goldust? And as Funk the Gamer said, his theme is dope. Yes, it is. It is an awesome theme. I remember Goldust in late 95, early 96. That was maybe one of the first times when I was like, man, this, like, I could see what they were doing. As a kid, I'm like, I know what they're doing here, and it was really good. It was,
and back then, I mean, the mainstream media looked at wrestling differently back then. Back then, Goldust would do let's say Conan O'Brien, and he'd be treated like a joke, and the audience would be laughing at him and all that. It's different now. Yes. So now you can have him beat Goldust, and he can actually do an interview as Dustin Rhodes in the Goldust gear, and it's totally acceptable. I think it's a good thing to try out. Again, they need talent at the top of the card, or maybe not the top, but at least upper mid card, and I think he could do it. Isn't it?
Somebody says bring back Marlena. That ain't happening.
No,
that ain't happening.
No, she looks a little plastic now. But isn't it refreshing that we're talking about positive things, Sean? Positivity, man. We're talking about things that are good about the show. Isn't that cleansing, Sean?
I mean, I don't make the list every week. You do.
So if this was your list, you'd just be shitting on everybody.
If anything, I get criticized because if I say I don't like Raw, people go to the trouble of saying, you say you don't like Raw, then you talked about all this stuff you liked. I'm like, it's a 3-hour show.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
gonna like some stuff. I like to point out intricacies of things I do like, things that I know that they could fix. Because I'm not going to get in there and tell Dean Ambrose how to do an arm wringer right, but I can say they could have done this logically, they could have done that logically.
Sure.
But I think that Goldust maybe they're not going to bring back Marlena, but who could they fit in that spot? Because
you mean with Goldust? You mean?
Yeah, but maybe they won't do it because.
How about Dakota?
No.
They could.
No, that's not happening.
No?
Not happening. No chance.
She's like in her 20s now, isn't she?
No chance. No chance. Zero chance.
Well, whatever, but I like him in that spot. I mean, there's a lot of girls in the independents. They could grab anybody.
Well, the thing is, they would probably need a blonde to go with it.
Yeah.
Summer Rae's there.
Yeah.
She's not doing anything.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that also makes me wonder if they're doing the movie gimmick. That seems an awful lot Miz-ish, like a little... Especially if you got a blonde with you, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll feud down the road. Who knows?
If Miz and Maurice weren't a thing, Maurice would be perfect for that.
Yeah, she would. But she's awesome with the Miz.
Maurice is perfect for a lot of things. I thought that back when she was Divas champion, I hated the women's wrestling segments. But when she came on, I was like, I just liked watching her walk to the ring, watch her body language. She got it as a heel. In the ring, no. But
she's great, and you know when she does the thing where she gets in the ring and puts her hair back and does the wink in the ring, it's just awesome. Maurice is awesome, and this is a nice little segue to my next positive note, Sean. because you're putting over Maurice for her abilities outside the ring, because you said she's not the greatest in the ring, but she's great in other areas.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Alexa Bliss, because that promo that she did on Raw this week, I thought she was awesome doing that promo.
Usually is.
Yeah, she's very good at improvising, because obviously I'm sure her stuff is written for word, but she doesn't go out there and regurgitate it. Like, she makes it her own. You can tell she improvises. Another thing I like about her is that she listens to the crowd, and she shut up that what chant like that. She
had somebody arguing with me that she didn't. They said, you need to watch it with volume on. I said, you need to get a life.
No, of course, that's how you would respond.
I
to
didn't
that
really
guy.
say that. I set you up. I set you up, and
you?
you bit.
Yeah.
Fool. How about that one, Ventura?
It's because you typically will say stupid shit like that. That's what you do.
I'm extremely positive on Twitter the last few weeks.
You said something on the MMA podcast this week, and I can't remember what the topic was, but you were talking about something somebody said, and you called him a piece of crap. And my wife was next to me on the couch, and she started laughing, because we were like, Sean doesn't probably know that guy personally, but he's a piece of shit now. So
Whoa,
that's
what was
just
it?
I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look.
What was the quote? I probably had a reason.
I don't remember. I don't know. Maybe he was making fun of the Kentucky Wildcats. I have no idea.
Well, that's a good way to get it done.
It would be.
It's funny you talk about how much Alexa Bliss, like, usually people are micromanaged and their promos are written out for them. I remember I interviewed her last year.
I saw the video.
And somebody was like, why are you standing so far away from her? Because WWE has little red X's that you have to stand on, and that the talent has to stand on.
Right.
And that's the degree that they micromanage people. That when they farm out interviews or allow interviews to go out, that you gotta do that. So the fact that she's been able to make that work is kind of cool. What?
When I saw those interviews that you did, I think I've told you this before, because you also did it with American Alpha, right? Mm-hmm. And when I saw those interviews, I told you, Sean, you were deceptively large.
Yeah, I'm 6 feet tall.
Because when I see you sitting in a chair like that, you look like you're 5'2" and about 110 pounds. But in reality, when I saw you interviewing, you were like the same size as Jason Jordan, like the same height as Jason.
He's a little taller than me. I was kind of surprised at how short that Gable was.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jordan wasn't that much taller than me. Obviously, he's a lot more broad than me, and he's built at 6'3". But if you would have had a stand like sideways, Jason Jordan is just such a massive dude. Like when you see him.
But height-wise, you guys were close, and I was surprised, because like I'm 5'9", and looking at you in this thing, I would look like I'm bigger than you. But when we meet in person, because we will eventually, when we meet in person, you're actually like a pretty big dude.
Yeah, kind of. And see, that's weird for me to think, because I went in high school, I was tiny. If you, like, people saw the prom picture I posted a few weeks ago, when I was a senior in high school, I was maybe 5'7" and 110 pounds.
And then you started drinking energy drinks and Atkins, lasagna, and whoosh,
I got off that Ritalin prescription is what happened. I was on Ritalin when I was younger. Yeah, and I grew, I think the last, your doctor takes down your height and all that stuff as you get older. I think the last time there was any change, I was 26 years old.
Really?
That's absurd, yeah. Kyler says, yeah, Sean is a tall person. I was surprised.
Yeah. Because you just don't come off it.
I'm
like
just
seeing you
surprising
on
everybody today. Being tall, jumping on cars, I am just a ball. How about that?
Let's talk about your vertical jump. So, have you ever seen footage of? Because Brock Lesnar, obviously, you see it in the ring, but he's very agile, and I've also seen The Rock doing that, and Rock's pretty agile too, or at least he was when he was younger. I don't know if he is so much anymore. Have you seen what they're capable of, and how do you compare to that?
Mine, I don't know where the hell mine comes from, to be honest with you, because that's really my athletic gift. That's it. And the reason I posted the video is because somebody, when I was doing an On It promo, they said, I'll buy it if you prove you can jump onto a car. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go out back and do that right now. And they bought it, so that was kind of cool.
And you can do that with no running start, and you keep your feet together?
Maybe like a 1-2 step hop type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not like running and jumping.
Yeah.
Like I could.
Is that how you run? Do you run the way you just showed with your arms swinging like that?
A few years ago, I could dunk a basketball, but if I could learn to dribble, shoot, pass, and play defense, I might be okay at it.
Can you chew gum while you're doing all that?
I don't know. Probably not.
Because they say that fucks up your brain.
If you would have gotten me those shoes that I was talking about, as LV Sports Group points out, that would increase my vertical 5 inches.
Okay, if you had to let me get you the house in Kansas City, and if we had to have agreed to something whereby you could sell it after X number of years, you could have taken the proceeds and bought yourself the shoes.
Kansas
Think
City
about
ain't
it
Toronto,
that.
my friend, or Richmond, Missouri.
But it was a $36,000 house. You can get the shoes for that.
Yeah.
You know?
If I want a $36,000 house, I'll probably just buy it myself at this point. But, oh, God. That
It was
one
still a free offer for a free house.
That's very true. That's a good point. Because I have, as we talked off air, I have been looking at moving in the next couple of years. But I don't know anybody there. If you think I wake up late now, you put me in the central time zone, that's maybe not a good idea.
Yeah, I can't reach you half the time at 10 a.m., so what's going to happen?
Not true. That is not true.
What's going to happen if you're in a different time zone?
2 times in 10 months.
I'll be
have
like,
you been
Sean,
unable
it's
to
2
reach
p.m.,
me?"
man. It's 2 p.m. Seriously.
Joe used to make those jokes too. He was like, he just woke up. He's in a bad mood. I'm like, Joe, it's noon.
Okay, Joe's got nothing to say because Joe's off in Pickering, Ontario at like 1 in the afternoon when, you're trying to test a podcast. He's got nothing to say about that.
But in 10 months, well, gosh, wow, a month and a half we'll be around for a year. Isn't that crazy to think?
Yeah, I think I like to think August because July was kind of beta mode. So I look at August 1st, I guess. But it's coming up.
Yeah, and 2 times you've been unable to reach me. 2. And this includes at like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, mind you.
You know what I loved about the MMA podcast this week too?
What?
So as you know, I couldn't watch it live. I was busy in the afternoon. But when I checked it out at night, at one point Joe says, "Is Jimmy Van watching this right now?" And you said, "No, he's in meetings." I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, I mean, you can watch it eventually.
Yeah.
I think this week may actually mark 1 year since you reached out to me, Jimmy Van.
Is that right?
I think so. I was looking through my emails the other day, and I saw it. It was a mid to late May type of thing.
Really?
And it's funny because I was out there, and I was like that week, I'd started to talk to some people about like maybe making a move.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hit me up and you said, "Oh, wrestling, MMA, and boxing," and I was like, "I like this guy. I like this guy."
Now, who were you talking to? Like, who were you planning to make a move to?
Well, I was talking to a lot of people, like about, I'm not going to name people in particular because I did turn down a few offers, but I just, I wanted to improve my financial situation because I was selling a lot of ads. That was how I was relying on a lot of my money before then, to the point to where I practically paid for myself. And
You mean like on the podcast?
yes.
So where the hell are our ads?
I don't know. You got Melissa.
Wait a
Lindsay,
second.
where
If
you
you
at?
could do it, if you could do it on that podcast, how come you can't do it on this one? You know why, Sean? Because like I said earlier, you're comfortable now because you
about
have a guaranteed contract.
How about I tell you off the air why?
Just like we talked. Oh, yeah, there's a reason?
Yeah, there's a reason.
Okay. You can tell me off the air. I'm sure it's bullshit, but you can tell me off the air.
Fucking Canadians, guys. Wait. Damn it, I don't know which way to point at.
I know, it's backwards.
Son of a bitch.
It is. One other thing I want to tell you, Sean, and I kind of told you this already, but I want the people here to know. So I have been sitting on a bunch of old VHS tapes, and I'm sure you have them too, Sean. Everybody does. And they've just been sitting there collecting dust, and finally this week I got around to finding a guy that will convert it to digital. Yeah. And he's doing it right now, and I hope to have it by the end of the week. Some of the stuff that I've given him, some of the stuff I've given him to digitize, because some of it's like family stuff and whatnot, but some of it is wrestling matches from shows that I used to promote. And I don't know everything that's on those tapes, but I'm pretty sure Eric Young is in a bunch of them, and Bobby Roode is in a bunch of them, and guys like Jim Duggan and Jim the Anvil Neidhart is in a bunch of them. So when I get the footage back, if it turned out decent, because these tapes are like, 15, 20 years old, if it's decent enough footage, I'm going to use that for future segments on this podcast.
I like that. And you even mentioned us doing commentary over them.
Yes, I did. I talked about you and I doing commentary because I think that would be awesome.
I think that would be fun too. Now, would you want to do it straight up or like with a little flair to it?
We can do it whatever way you want, Sean. So long as you don't talk down to me and disrespect me, then we can do it. We can do it whatever way you want to do it.
How many comments did we used to get on these that say, "How long does it take Jimmy Van to remind Sean who writes the checks?" and stuff like that?
And you and I could never understand that. There would be people that would post comments saying, "I don't think Jimmy likes Sean,"
Yeah.
and I'd be like, "What are you talking about?"
And that funny dude who replied and said, "Yeah, SRS ain't a fucking gimmick," which I still don't understand. Because I kind of am.
People are interesting, man. What can you say? You know. But no, I think the commentary thing could be a lot of fun. You know, and you know what we could do? We could play the clip live on the show and do the commentary live.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking as we were talking about that.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a cool thing that we would be able to do with this software. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of that. I love the video content. I'm gonna hopefully have some stuff from NXT tomorrow night that I'm at. Also, I've got some archive videos. As I got a new phone a few weeks ago, I found like a bunch of matches and clips that I had filmed from my other phone throughout the past year or so. So
you mean like WWE stuff or independent stuff?
WWE stuff and independent stuff, especially from that Evolve show that I went to watch Matt.
Really,
Matt wrestle. Sent Matt a text this week. He didn't reply.
Yeah, I haven't reached out to him. I'll give him a week or two. Do you know if he actually did a podcast on his own?
I don't think he did, but I gotta admit, I'm a little bummed.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
Well, you know, I like Matt. I like Matt a lot. I had interviewed Matt like every year for the past 3 or 4 years, even leading up to Fightful.
Yeah.
So I maintained a pretty decent relationship with him, but it's a
it'll
bummer.
be fine.
Hopefully.
And without mentioning names, because you know what I'm talking about, sometimes people leave and then they come back, Sean.
Yeah, they do.
So I'm gonna leave.
You making any headway on that?
Haven't heard back yet.
Well, that's funny because I talked to them today.
And did they get my email?
They did.
They did. Okay. You and I will talk off the air.
Yeah, we should. It is, I think it's about that time, Jimmy. We need to tell the people, of course, go visit Fightful.com, register, absolutely free. I do members-only podcast on occasion. I almost want to call it the hotline, Jimmy, because we get to talk about the stuff that necessarily you might not want me to talk about, just all willy-nilly out there. We talked to Rob McCarran, who used to do podcasts with us. He turned down a pretty high-profile job, and we talked about why that happened and what went into it and how he thinks that came down. I also talk about some of the former places I worked, why I left, how the experience was, and we kind of do a little bit of an AMA on there. You can only get that by registering at Fightful.com for free. Also, the forums. I love the activity on the forums, guys. I want everybody watching this to head over there and start a topic. We've got wrestling, MMA, boxing, movies, TV, action figures. I love using the forums. It's a great way to keep in touch with me.
And you know what? Sorry to cut you off, but I have a bunch of Edge autobiographies that were signed by Edge. Whenever that came out, I think it was the late 90s that book came out, or early 2000s. I have some that were signed by him. I will give one away to a random person that posts in the forum.
That's awesome. And I still have some signed Mysterio masks. I'll probably give away that stupid rule book that WWE had. We'll give away some stuff to people that are using the forum. So go over there and do that. Register for free at Fightful.com. We have shows this Saturday and Sunday after NXT TakeOver Chicago and Backlash. Anna will be with us Saturday. She'll be on set Sunday, so unfortunately won't be with us. But check out Most Ridiculous. We got lots of cool video content. Joe is doing these MMA quick hits for us, which I really like. Also, if you like the format of this show, our MMA show is following the same format with Showdown Joe.
That's right.
So this week he talked to Sean Pearson. We're going to get Frank Trigg in there to talk about some of the refereeing controversies that we've experienced. Somebody says they want that guitar. Hey, if you all help us meet like traffic goals and follower goals and all that stuff, I will get that done. I might even be able to get Jarrett to sign it somehow because Jarrett always responds to my requests for comments.
As long as you don't let him know what I've said about him and how I think that Global Force is a bunch of bullshit, then he'll probably do it.
Global Force doesn't exist anymore.
Is that right?
I mean, they merged with Impact.
Yeah, but they still have the Global Force title, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. It's a bunch of bullshit.
Well, the NWA still has a title, but do they exist?
I heard Corrigan got the library, though. That's what he wanted, I think, right?
What library? What is there to own?
The on-demand footage. He got that footage.
Damn.
Yeah.
Follow us at Fightful Online, at Fightful Wrestle, at Fightful MMA. We also have Bellator 179 coming up Friday. So every night this weekend, Bellator, NXT, WWE, come hang out in our live discussion. We want to see you all there. Please let people know about the show, about the site. All that stuff really helps. Subscribe and leave us a thumbs up. Guys, I want to thank you all so much. Jimmy, you got anything else?
That's it, man. We hit the whole 90 minutes this week. It went by quick.
We are out.